Hello, welcome back to another episode on John the PM, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. For today, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about earned value management, also known as EVM. So, a lot of times when I'm in a classroom setting or even on a consult or something of that nature, the topic of earned value kind of comes up and people run away from it. And the reason why is because they feel like it's a financial and accounting thing, way too much numbers, way too much math. We don't do it. I think I've heard all the gamuts, on that side. First off, it is very well established within the government, in particular in DoD, and you can certainly read about it, in those areas with regards to the value that they place upon it, on those pieces. Um, on a personal basis, I see earned value as simply a communications tool and a way to maintain situational awareness of your project. So I'm just going to outline just a few of the items here and then kind of move on from there. Okay. But first off, I want to start off with a scenario. Let's assume that you're a project manager. Let's assume that you have a project that will last for 4 months. 4 months. In month one, you're supposed to spend $1,000. In month two, you're supposed to spend another $1,000. In month three, you're supposed to spend another $1,000. And in month four, you're supposed to spend another $1,000. Let's assume that you need to give a status update to your sponsor. In other words, the individual that's actually authorized the project to begin with, on those areas. And let's assume that you're going to do it halfway through the project. So after month two. So the way that I've kind of outlined it is that by theory, theoretically, you should have spent about $2,000. 1,000 in month one, 1,000 in month two. Okay, so that's how we get to $2,000, in that regards. Let's say that you go to your boss, the sponsor, and you inform that individual that you spent $3,000. Now, we all know, that what would happen is that people will automatically jump to the conclusion that you spent way too much money, in that regards. They expect you to have only spent up to $2,000 up to that time, and in reality, you spent $3,000. The truth is that you don't know if the project is going good or bad, to be quite frank. Let's assume that you actually got 80% of the project completed, or even 90% of the project completed. Given that factor, you're doing extremely well. More than likely, you're going to come in under budget and ahead of schedule, more than likely, all things held equal, in that regards. On the other hand, let's say that you only got 25% of the work done. Oh my, you definitely have a problem. First off, you're going to be way late. That's the first issue. And the second issue is that you're probably going to be over budget by a significant amount on that side. So while people will initially, take a negative reaction to the idea that you spent 3,000, you were supposed to have only spent 2,000. The reality is that you quite frankly, or they quite frankly, don't know. Now, again, in full disclosure, I would put the blame on the project manager. One of the cardinal rules when rendering reports and things of that nature is never provide a number without context, on that side. So in that particular scenario, I would actually blame the project manager. Okay, because they just say, "Hey, we spent $3,000" without any context, thereof, on those pieces. So let's not do that. What helps you to provide context? Earn value. It literally does. Okay, so there's going to be four key variables that you need to know about. The first one is going to be budget at completion. Um, Budget at completion literally means what is the budget by the end, on those areas. So if you're supposed to spend $1,000 each month and there are 4 months, then your budget at completion will be $4,000. That's the first thing you probably need to know. The second is that you need to know is your planned value. Your planned value is simply the addition as you go through the amount that you've had planned to spend as you go through the project. So your planned value for the first month is $1,000. Your planned value for the second month will be 2,000, 1,000 plus 1,000, 2,000. Your planned value for the third month would be 3,000, and your plan value for the fourth month will be 4,000. Okay, so that's your plan value, in that regards. The third item that you need to know is actual cost. Literally, what have you spent on the project? Now, in academic land, most of the time we'll just say the actual cost is XYZ. Out in the field, do check in with your CFO, your chief financial officer, and may inquire, which ledger account they would like for you to use. Some organizations they'll use funds obligated. Some they'll use a forecast, whatever the appropriate ledger account. Your CFO should have the final say, in regards to that, on those pieces. The fourth item that you need to know is actual earned value. So, by definition, earned value is percent work completed times your plan value. Up to that point in time, and on those areas. So, the plan value part of that equation is very straightforward. We just saw that 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So that's fairly straightforward. The percent work is where the challenge is. So, for example, out in the field, I don't know about you, but most of the time when you ask folks how much work they've done, a lot of times they will overestimate how much. They'll say words to the effect of, oh, we're about 70, 80% finished. And then it takes them 6 years to finish the last 10, 20, 30% of it, on that side. So, there are some tricks of the trade that I would use. One is I would tie it back to milestones. So, for example, if you have 5 milestones and each milestone represents 20%, so 5 times 20 is 100. If they hit the second milestone, you know that they're 40% finished. If they hit the third milestone, you know that they are 60% finished. If they hit the fourth milestone, they are 80% finished. If they hit the fifth milestone, they are complete. In that regards. And of course, if they hit the first milestone, they're 20%. This way, there's no ambiguity as to what the percent work complete is. Again, I would reserve that for out in the field on those pieces. There's going to be 4 key formulas. The first formula is going to be cost variance, and then the second one is schedule variance. The formula for cost variance is going to be earned value minus actual cost. The formula for schedule variance is going to be earned value minus planned value. So if it deals with cost, it's going to be actual cost. If it deals with schedule, it's going to be planned value. Why planned value? How is planned value tied to the schedule? The reason why is because your dollars, your budget, your cost estimate by work package should have been spread over some period of time period in accordance to how much work was being done. So that's the connection on the schedule side. Earned value, you will notice, is key in both of those. So earned value is really a linchpin. And then if you really want to drill down to a little bit further, percent work complete is really the key driver, on those pieces on that side. If you have a positive cost variance or a positive schedule variance, that associate that with being good. In other words, you are going to be under budget or ahead of schedule. If these cost variance or schedule variance is positive. If the cost variance and the schedule variance are negative, then we usually associate that with being bad. Okay, on that side. So negative is bad, positive is good. And if it's negative, so for example, if you have a negative schedule variance, then you would expect that basically what you're saying is that your project is behind schedule. If you have a positive schedule variance, then what you are saying is that you are going to be ahead of schedule. And the same, rationale with the cost variance. If you have a negative cost variance, then you are going to be over budget. If you have a positive cost variance, then you will be under budget, on that side. And those are going to be represented by whole numbers. The beauty of the schedule variance and the cost variance is that it gives you an order of magnitude. It lets you know if you have a $100,000 problem or $1,000,000 problem or $1,000 problem. So it just simply monetizes the impact, thereof. So that is awesome. The next two are going to be index. You're going to have a cost performance index and a schedule performance index. Your cost performance index is going to be earned value over actual cost. Notice that it's the same as the cost variance, except that one's a subtraction sign, the other one is a divisor. And it will be the same rationale for schedule performance index. It will be earned value over planned value, which again is very similar to the schedule variance, except that as opposed to a subtraction sign, there's a divisor. So what does the index mean? Think of an index as based off of 1 or 100%. Or it's an efficiency metric. So if you're running over 100%, that means that you are doing good. You are getting more out of something than what you expected. So if you have a schedule performance index that is greater than 1, that means that you are going faster than expected. That's good. If you have a cost performance index greater than 1, that means that you are being very efficient with your money, with your dollars. That is very, very good. What happens if it's below 1? That means that you are being less than optimal. In other words, let's say that you have zero point 0.9, if your schedule performance index is 0.9, that means that you're running at 90% efficiency. You're not going quite as fast as what you expected to go. Or you have a cost performance index of zero point 0.9. That means that for every dollar you spend, you're only getting 90 cents out of it, which is clearly not good, on those areas. So those are going to be your four major ones. And those two, actually a cost variance and schedule variance really helps you to articulate to your, sponsor, are you ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Are you over budget or under budget? Which essentially at the end of the day is really what they care about. Now, there's one other thing that they're going to care about, and that's the third item. The third item is how much more time and dollars do you need? And that is where your estimate at completion comes into play. The formula for estimate at completion is just simply take your original budget, BAC, budget at completion, and divide it by your cost performance index. Remember, your cost performance index was an efficiency metric. So, all things held equal, there's a lot of other assumptions that can be made and things of that nature. But relative to this discussion, how you did in the past is how you're going to continue to go forward. So, you divide it by your cost performance index, and you'll arrive at your new estimate. Okay, which is just basically a revised budget. But formally in academic land, we'll call it estimate at completion, on those areas. Then how do you calculate your estimate to complete? You just simply take your estimate at completion and you back out your actual cost. And what you're left with is your estimate to complete, on those sides. So now you have all the tools that you need, in order to clearly articulate to your boss, not to your sponsor, the three items that they most care about. One, are you over or under budget? Are you ahead of or behind schedule? And how much more resources do you need on those sides? One last point, and then we'll kind of take a wrap for here. Um, what I ask people to do is, whether out in the field or on the test, is to take a look at their work and see what their gut feels. If their gut feels like they're behind schedule or over budget or whatever their gut says, okay, kind of acknowledge that part. Then do the math. In my mind, if the math and your gut matches, that is good. And the reason why is because you have situational awareness. So let's test that. Let's say that your gut says that things are going bad, and sure enough, you go through the math and you're negative on both sides, or below 1 on both sides. In other words, you are truly behind schedule and you're truly over budget. To me, that is a good thing. And the reason why is because you can actually do something about it. If there was a mismatch, either you thought things were going really, really well and the numbers were proving otherwise, or vice versa, that means that you do not have situational awareness and you need to do a lot more digging to better understand what is actually happening on your project. The going thought is that you cannot correct something that you don't know about, on those areas. So that's why I say it that way, on those pieces. All right. Let's wrap this up. These are supposed to be, short, concise, quick snippets. Obviously, I could go a lot more detail. I used to be Certified Management Accountant, actually, CMA. Back in the day. So I love managerial accounting. Just as a matter of fact, the on those areas really cut my teeth early on in my career. On those pieces. Been involved in mergers and acquisitions and things of that nature. So I really enjoy the that aspect of it, and I encourage you to also try to understand a little bit better. Make friends with your financial accounting team. They will help you. They'll be ecstatic too. I've never met an accounting team that was not ecstatic when the project manager actually asked them a question ahead of time. They're all be thrilled, and they'll do their best to help you. Why? Because it's in their best interest. Because they know that at the end of the project, the numbers will be audited. So they want to make sure that everything is clear and clean. By the end on those pieces. So just kind of wrap this up. Four variables you should maintain situational awareness of. One is your budget at completion. Basically, what is the total budget for this project? And if you think about it, you ought to know that. You just ought to know that. If I'm doing a home project, I'm going to have my roof replaced. I need to know how much of an expense that will be. You need to know your planned value. In other words, when will the activities actually occur? And potentially, when do I actually need the funds in order to cover for that? Of course, that's a little bit more under funding limit reconciliation, in that regards. The third one is going to be your actual cost. I hope that all project managers are keeping up with their spend their actual spend, and have that well documented so that they can acknowledge it to the appropriate folks within their organization or their key stakeholders in those pieces. And then finally, earned value. Now, the earned value can be a little tricky to actually calculate. Sometimes you have to go through several rounds until you get to something that actually makes sense, resonates for your organization. If for nothing else, try to keep up with percent complete. If for nothing else, percent complete. That will bode you well, regardless. All right. Well, hopefully you found that helpful. If you don't mind, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Hitting those really helps us to help you, because at the end of the day, we just want all of your projects to be wildly successful.